Jim and Lucas, athlete builder, back at it. Trevor Browder is the guest. Homegrown Indiana boy from our gym, from Unbreakable Athletics, who played football, Cardinal Ritter, then at Marion, then did start working through the system up through Ball State, helped mentor Jack when he was there for a little bit, kept moving up, Alabama, Birmingham. Now, if you see his sweatshirt, Tennessee Titans. And the guy's in his early 20s, early to mid 20s, and he's working for a pro team. And he knew at an early age that this is what he wanted to do, which is really rare. Most people don't know that. I wanted to be in finance for the longest time, and here I am running a gym and a podcast 15 years after I got out of finance. So, man, Trevor, thanks for being on the show, man. I'm looking forward to insights, looking forward to our chat and just getting to know you and how you got to where you are, man. Thanks for being on today.
Absolutely. Glad to be on, and really appreciate everything you've done over the course of my early career, as an athlete, and then kind of moved through all those. There's tons of lessons from Unbreakable I continue to take and implement, whether it's in coaching, whether it's in life, whether it's in sports. So I certainly appreciate all that.
Awesome. So first question, if Hard Knocks is at the Tennessee Titans and you're up there, right, and they drag you out, what is your talent or song that you're going to be singing?
Oh, it's a great question. It had to be some sort of country song, I would think, or a worship song, one of those two. Like, those are really, like, when you boil me down, that's about all I listen to. So it would be something like that if I.
All right. What's a country song, man? We're gonna drill down into the weeds here.
Alan Jackson, my favorite artist of all time, so I imagine it'd be one of his songs.
All right. Now, I don't know if Hard Knocks is scheduled or not. The last season they had the AFC North and the Cleveland Browns, so we're not really happy about that. But working for a pro team, and how old are you, Trevor?
26.
26. That's outstanding, right? Talk about, the real question is, you said that, and as a sophomore in high school, I knew I wanted to play college football. Not I thought about it or I want to. I knew I was going to play. And then I wanted a career in football. How did that happen? How did that calling occur?
Yeah, I'm a spiritual guy, so I know it was God calling, obviously. But really, I remember specifically when it was. I was a sophomore, wasn't driving yet, and I was standing waiting for, I'm sure you remember this name, Max Eganoff, him and his brother and his older sister, who took us to school when we were, freshmen, sophomores. They were coming to pick me up. And I remember, I don't know what it was, but it was just something that clicked in me. Like, this is the moment where you're going to make the commitment to go play college football. You don't know where it's going to be. You want to play at the highest level and, all that sort of stuff. But, it was in that moment. I couldn't tell you what day it was or whatever, but it was in that moment. And my approach to kind of everything changed a little bit, kind of going into, that sophomore year, so going into that sophomore season, and I actually encountered a coach who had gotten there right before our sophomore year at Ritter. His name's Kyle Powers. And, as far as a high school coach, nobody made a bigger impact on me. I firmly believe that any really good high school player, there's a really good high school coach along the way that, either gave them a bunch of football knowledge, or more importantly, and odds are more times than not, instill belief in them. And that's what Coach Powers did for me. Was, there's ups and downs throughout the course of anything in life, and obviously the game of football. And I had gotten throughout the summer just gotten beaten bad by a couple upperclassmen receivers, like just couldn't cover, playing corner. And he just laughed after a couple of reps. He's like, "You're going to be a really good player," and all it took was that. I mean, I tell him all the time, like, how much I appreciate that, because he instilled belief in me to go play at a level I probably wasn't ready for as a 16-year-old. But he instilled belief in me. And that's why I was able to play, at a, reigning state championship program going into my sophomore year, which I was super, super blessed and thankful for. And so that's really, like, when you talk about that kind of 3-month span, was really kind of what planted the seed in me to, change, and not that I had a poor mindset, but change my mindset in terms of what, my work and what I wanted to go do, being in alignment. kind of for the immediate future going to play college football, which ended up, being at Marion University after we finished up playing at Ritter. So really, though, that, those two defining moments, kind of the, calling within me and kind of the switch that flipped, kind of with my mindset. And then also Coach Powers, instilling belief in me to go do things, I don't think I could have done. I know I couldn't have done probably without, his belief in me. So
There's two big gifts there. One is that calling early on. At any point when you realize that if your faith drives you to do something, that's awesome because now you're just like, well, I can get up and, yeah, today might suck, but I'm really happy about the path I'm on. So you're willing to do those things. And then two, we had this other guy on, this Marine sniper, and I always talk about you build up confidence from doing things. The reps kind of earn your confidence. But he also pointed out when you have parents or mentors that tell you that you're enough for who you are, and I believe in you, because you're some little kid like you so many of us walk around with doubt, and if you can get rid of that a little bit, you're going to try a few more things that maybe you wouldn't have tried, and then you're going to have some successes because you're getting those reps now. So you put those two things together, and this kid's confidence is going to grow, and then you're going to push for something else. So that leadership role is just so impactful, whether you're the manager or a parent or the actual coach on the team. And because of those couple moments, then you're just off and running. And here we are, man. What a gift.
absolutely, absolutely.
Now, there's wanting and needing and must doing things, but you didn't just sit there and like, I'm gonna go to practice. Like you started coming to our place and you lined up with Dustin, who was a college player and he's a strength coach, and then Zane, who we've had on, and he's a strength coach for the Colts. So you had some help, but you're also like, you're not just motivated, you're not just disciplined, but you're driven at that point. You're making choices on your personal time and behavior. So how valuable was being around those guys that had already played at a high level and then started training you and treating you like a young man, even though you're at a young age?
Absolutely. Yeah. They push you to become something that they believe you could become, maybe when you don't even see it yourself, kind of similar to like what Coach Powers did without really even knowing it. But, they push you to something that, and I think it's calling of a coach is, can you push somebody further than, they're able to go on themselves, but on their own, with their own abilities. And so that's really what they did for me, both through casting a vision, kind of for what I can go do, but then also setting a standard, as far as what I could go accomplish and holding me to that standard, even when I, tried to not try to avoid that standard. They were there to, like I said, at a young age to make sure I was at that standard, and they didn't let me shortcut anything. And then you look up in a few years and it's not in your DNA to shortcut anything. It's how you've been wired. And so I'm super thankful for Dustin, for, Adrian Penko prior to Dustin. And then, obviously Zane, just over the course of those years, because it's one thing to set a standard as a coach, and then it's another thing to hold everyone in the organization to it, and that's what they did for me, which was, I'm super, super grateful for, because then you look on the other side of the coin, and they taught you how to do that from a coaching standpoint too. So you observe that from that side too. So it's really it's a full 365-degree, like influence that they've truly had on me. Every now and then I'll text Dustin and Adrian and just tell them like, I'm super, super thankful for you guys. Like, I don't think you guys really, truly understand the impact you guys made. You guys probably see it from me as an athlete in the short span that you're an athlete. Even if you go on and play at this level, like it's a short time that you're an athlete, but what they instilled in me was something that lasted. I mean, it's still carrying on now. It's going to carry on for the rest of my life. So, because of the influence and impact that we're all able to have. So
Awesome. The you didn't play in the NFL, but you did play in college, and Marion, solid football program. They've won national titles.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Everyone has a holy shit, welcome to the college game moment or practice, or and then it happens in the NFL. Even if you're not playing, we have these, oh wow, like this is real. This is a different level. This is not I had some expectations, but here's reality, and it's a little different than what I had envisioned. What were those moments for you? What was your college moment and your pro moment?
As a college player, I remember I remember we're running. I couldn't tell you when it was. Sometime during my freshman year of training camp, and you're running a toss crack scheme, and the most inside receivers responsible for pinning the defensive end. And I mean, shoot, we run it here. The most outside receiver is, you know, designed to crack the first linebacker off and inside. And I remember, being 18 years old, having to crack Logan Marsh, that's his name, Logan Marsh, Sam linebacker, who ended up playing, he was starting Sam that year, and having to crack him. And it was one of those deals where you just get ran over slowly, and get your job done and move on to the next thing, hope the back gets outside of it. So that was one in college for sure, where you kind of wake up or you kind of pop up off the ground and you got to put your face mask on straight again. And then at this level, there's one that really sticks out. I remember being in training camp this year, and one of our linebackers, Jack Gibby, Jack Gibson, he made a play where we're in a 3 deep coverage, and he's responsible for carrying 3 vertical as the weak hook player, and the number 3 receiver is running a sail route, which is a deep route, and he makes a break and tracks the ball. And it was just unbelievable. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like that is incredible range to be able to track that route from across the field and make a play, and reached across his body to deflect the ball out of bounds. I was like, golly, like that's a heck of a play. So at this level, I'd say it was that. It's kind of hard to explain without video, but those were 2 that come to mind in terms of playing and coaching at a high level.
What is the physical, encounter in college, and then you're witnessing something physically occur that you're probably like, I didn't realize that could actually happen, and I didn't think that was going to happen with this guy. And sure enough, he closed on a receiver from far away at an angle, and made it happen. You're like, okay, these people are different, and there's a reason behind that. Um, just real quick, chronological, the steps. Like, how does someone go from Marion, NAIA school, and you're coaching in high school as well. You you helped out Jack because Jack showed up as a as a walk-on as a freshman, and he doesn't know anybody other than you and Doherty. But then you go a couple other spots or stops along the way, IU and whatnot. But just talk about hey, if you want to be at this level, you got to be willing to be mobile, and it's quick, and there's ups and downs, and you're just always working towards these goals, but things happen. So just run us through the timeline, in the chronological timeline there.
Yeah, you're 100% right about all that. When I graduated from Ritter, I knew I wanted to coach. And you talk about kind of those defining moments, kind of throughout the courses that you just don't forget. I remember specifically I was in ice bath, kind of getting ready for the first freshman year at Ritter. And I knew I wanted to coach, but it didn't dawn on me to start coaching while I was playing. And my other mentor, who's one of my best friends, Rob Gibson, he's the head coach at Avon High School right now, actually. He's kind of been my compass, to be honest with you. Like, I talk to that dude every day. I was on the phone with him probably about an hour ago. We were just, when he was on his way home from school, we always chat for a little bit, and he told me, he's like, why don't you start coaching now? Like, why don't you, all you're doing is working out this summer. Like, why would you not start coaching now? And I was like, okay. And he's like, listen, the head coach at Danville High School is a Marion grad. His name's Casey Woods. I'll call him right now, and we'll get you on there and all that sort of stuff. And long story short, I ended up there for the first 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. But started that summer. I think it was that next week we kind of got started coaching, and it was really, really cool. A phenomenal opportunity at Danville, because that place taught me how to coach. It taught me, it helped me find my voice as a coach. And the reason being was Casey was the head coach, but he was a former receiver coach at Marion, played at Marion. And, it was really that offense we were running. And so he was coaching the receivers as the head coach. And he just gave me the receivers. He said, Ed, it's yours. And he gave me the opportunity to, like I said, develop my voice as a coach. And the opportunity to do that my freshman and sophomore year at a young age, which, I'm super, super grateful for. so I got the opportunity to do that. And a lot of people probably wondering, like, how do you make that happen while you're still playing in college? And, really the way I made it work was the summer, I was working out and I was able to make everything and all that sort of stuff. And then once the season rolled around, training camp was training camp. I was, how training camp is, like, you're, kind of in this, you're part of, this group of guys for 18 hours a day. And so once training camp kind of ended, we kind of got into a season flow. Like, I would go play my game on Saturday, Sunday, go to Marion, kind of put that game to bed. Monday was our off day. And so I would go out to Danville after my classes, figure out what the game plan was for that week, the opponent we were playing, all that sort of stuff, be around the kids for their Monday practice, which was typically just a walkthrough. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, go practice at Marion. And then Friday, as long as we were in town, I would go to their games. So I got a chance to be on the sidelines and all that sort of stuff, which was a great experience. Then go play again on Saturday. And that was kind of how it rolled for, kind of 12 weeks, all 3 years. Fourth year was kind of a unique year, but that's kind of how it rolled, at least those first 2 years at Danville, and learned a ton, like first year, I think we went 13-1, 12-1, and we're a game away from going to a state championship. And so we had a ton of success, and then going to the second year and you're 5-6, 6-5, whatever it was. And so you have the ebbs and flows kind of within those first 2 years too. And you learn a lot. And the common thing that I'll say throughout all these stops, I'll say at the beginning, I'll say it again at the end, is the people. Like, it starts with the people. It all, like, if I could sum up this whole journey in one word, it's people. It's all about people. Casey Woods gave me a phenomenal opportunity. All the coaches there really, like, planted the seeds of my coaching foundation. Like, that's what I'll never take it off my resume. Like, I coached at Danville High School. That was my first job. I don't care. Like, that'll always be my first stop, because that's the foundation, and then, kind of my junior year, I go off because I knew, and it was, Gibby again, those conversations where I talked to Coach Gibson about, he's like, you need to go back to the school you played from. You got to go learn from the coaches that coached you. You got to see them in a different light. You got to see them as colleagues and learn from them that way. And so that's what I did. I went back to Ritter, and at Danville, all I coached was the receivers. I went to Ritter and I was coaching the receivers and the outside linebackers, which was really a hybrid position, kind of what I had played, which was safety, outside linebacker, and Coach Hunt's defense. And so I went back there, and the really cool deal about that as well was I got to coach my little brother, Justin. He was there as a sophomore, and then that following year he was a junior. So really, really cool opportunity, because obviously we didn't get a chance to play with each other, but we got a chance to coach for really 2 years. I got to coach him for 2 years, which was a special opportunity. So I did that for my junior year. Sorry, go ahead.
Did he listen?
Oh, yeah.
Was he coachable? Because,
it was one of those deals where
if Jack tells Sam anything, he's just going to turn around and walk away. There's no way.
It was one of those deals where, Dad sat us down. I actually remember this. He's like, Trevor's your coach when you are at Ritter. If you have a problem with how everybody does something, wait till you get home. And you guys can, and we were good. Justin and I had a great relationship. And there were very few things he pushed back on me about. And if he did, it was always back home, which I'm grateful for. But it was really, really cool. It was a great, you hate to say working relationship at the ages we were at, but that's really what it was. And we took a very mature approach to it, which I'm grateful for. It allowed a lot of great things to come from it, both he and I. So that was our junior year at Marion. And then, really my senior year was that 2020 COVID year. And so I didn't have a senior season at Marion. And so I actually never played a senior and didn't have senior day, none of that. But the blessing within that was I got the chance to be the defensive coordinator at Ritter, kind of going into that final year for me. And I was graduating that December. And so once that season ended, essentially, that was when I went to Ball State. But, that year in 2020, while it was really unorthodox and, a very, very unconventional year, it was a great opportunity. Like, I got a chance to put together our playbook. I got a chance to put together installs, practice plans, all that sort of stuff, and make a ton of mistakes, along the way that a lot of times, these guys get coordinator opportunities and they have to learn all this stuff the first year, and they have a ton of support around them at the college level, at this level, but the chance that, and I'm forever grateful for Coach Hunt for giving me that opportunity at Ritter, was, that opportunity to kind of lead 11 dudes on defense, coach all 11 from a holistic view, be able to solve problems in real game time and make adjustments within the game. And, obviously throughout the course of the week and practice and game planning and all that. So it was a great opportunity from all aspects. It was, you play a couple games and you get one canceled, all that sort of stuff. So it was unorthodox, but it was, really, really good opportunity. And again, just the people, like great people at Ritter. And it starts, Coach Powers was there, the influence that he had on me based on what I said earlier, and just being able to work with him, is something I'll always cherish. And so, that was kind of the 4-year unorthodox college career that I had as a player and coach. And then I, went to Ball State, where I got a chance to coach Jack and, all those guys up there, and Coach New and Coach Johnson. I was actually the offensive line GA up there, which was, a great opportunity. And obviously I didn't play offensive line, never been anywhere near it except for that 1 year. But when I was there, it gave me the opportunity to really see the game, what I say in like 3D, wow, you really see everything that's going on and how the front marries to the perimeter and all that sort of stuff, and how to fix pass protection issues, how to make adjustments in the run game and build a run plan, build a protection plan, all those sort of things at a really high level of football was great to learn, under Coach Johnson, who's, a phenomenal dude. And just one little nugget about Coach Johnson is they had 2 GA job openings when I got up there. And I just figured with my experience, I would be with the offensive skill receivers or whatever. And he told me, he was like, you're going to help the program, whatever you do, but you're going to come here and you're going to be with me because it's going to help you in your future, to learn what's going on up front. And his investment in me through that I'm forever grateful for, and our relationship goes back to when he recruited me out of high school. He was at DePaul University recruiting me when I was at Ritter, and, he ended up leaving and going to Butler when I was at Marion. And I'd go over there and talk football with him all the time. And that's really where it stemmed from, was like, I know you'll come up here and do a good job because you have a great desire for football and learning and a passion for it. And, I probably took too much time away from his kids, in the offseason. We'd go up there and he would teach me everything. And so it made a really good transition when I went up there, because I had heard it all before, when he had taught me kind of the way he's blocking the zone run game, how he blocks duo, how he's blocking the gap schemes, all this sort of stuff, pass protection, basics and stuff like that. And then it's just a matter of, translating it into the language that they use up there. And so it was a great experience up there, just with, again, the great people like Coach New, Coach Johnson, all those guys, it was a great experience up there, and I learned so much. And then, kind of wrap up that season, we go 6-6, make a bowl game, and then at the end of that season, end up going down to Indiana with Coach Allen and those guys. And there I really learned how to have really deep relationships with your players, your players are everything, and you have to pour into them every single chance you get. And that's what Coach Allen does, from whether it's at Indiana, Penn State, and now at Clemson. I know that those dudes are pouring into their players, and he's doing something for the betterment of college athletes.
Talk about that LEO, love everyone with Coach Allen, because that was his deal. He was invested. He really cared about everyone, at least outwardly. But how much do I know? I'm watching things from TV, ESPN, the newspaper, but that seems to be, Coach Dockery, is friends with him, said that, he's, authentic like that.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned people and relationships. Talk about how that piece, how that impact it made on you, but how that moves a team and a culture forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It first of all, LEO is scripture based, stands for love each other. And that's what the Bible commands us to do. And so that was Coach Allen's way of communicating that, and ultimately the foundation of it is it's the right thing to do. It is what he believes with his faith. And secondarily, it pushes people to be their best, but primarily the foundation of it is scripture based, and it's always the right thing to do to love others. And, I firmly believe, and I think Coach Allen and all those guys would attest, is you only get the most out of the people that you are coaching when they know that you care about them. And that's what it's about. It's about the influence and the impact that you can have, and the byproduct is the success. Because your love for them, it's the one thing, it's one of the standards that Coach Allen said, his love for you isn't going to change regardless of how you play. The accountability will never change regardless. Like it's love and accountability. But my trust for you, like that's what ultimately leaves you on the field. And so the players had a really clear understanding. It's like, okay, yes, I know he loves me, but that doesn't mean he's going to play me. You know what I mean? Like he loves me for who I am and the person that I'm going to become. My job is to earn his trust on the field. And so I think that's an important thing that, I think players need to understand. Is like, it's not all the fluffy stuff as far as, you get everything you want when, you're part of this culture. Like there's a standard with it. It's just, it's a byproduct. The winning is a byproduct of doing things the right way. And so that's kind of, like when you talk about LEO, that's what I think of. I think about, all of the it's really, really strong love and it's really, really strong accountability, and I could go for hours on how much,
Right.
Coach Allen influenced me and impacted me. And, his son's one of my best friends. He played it in Indiana and became a GA when we were there. He was a GA. I was a QC in Indiana. And we did everything. I mean, it was awesome. We spent a lot of time together and had a lot of fun. We had great experiences. And again, it's just people, the players you're able to impact. I got a call from my brother a couple weeks ago. And one of our players who we had at Indiana is now coaching at Wabash with Justin. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Noah Pierre's there. So, when you build good relationships, those are the things that happen, and it's what it's all about. So that was the 22 season. 23, I went down to UAB, and being on defense in Indiana, I knew I was an offensive coach, and I knew if I had an opportunity to get back onto offense, I wanted to. And it put us in a different part of the country too, like being in the South, and that recruiting landscape and the different relationships you build in that part of the country was important to my career. And so we went down there, and our assistant DFO at Indiana went down there with Coach Dilfer and his first staff, as his chief of staff, and his name's Cole Peterson, really good friend of mine. And he did a great job there. And they had an opening, asked if I'd be interested, and we interviewed the next day, and Ken went on down. And kind of a crazy story within that was I was at Indiana. We were down at the Senior Bowl because we had a linebacker that was participating in the Senior Bowl at the time. And where it's our last day, I'm literally about to board the flight to fly to Charlotte and then connect back to Indianapolis to head back home. And Cole texted me and said, "Hey, we have an analyst job. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Absolutely, yeah." Like that's what I ultimately want, was to get back on offense, especially a place like that. With all the history at UAB and really good program, and Coach Dilfer, obviously, it's super appealing. And he's like, "Okay, we'll interview tomorrow at I think it was 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that in the afternoon." And I was like, sweet. So we jump on the plane, go to Charlotte, get on the plane from Charlotte to go back to Indy. Flight's canceled. And so now we're on a different flight the next morning to go to Detroit, and then Detroit to Indy. And I knew it was gonna be close. I was like, golly, like we're gonna be touching down in Indy. And then I still had to drive back down to Bloomington, get changed for the interview and all that sort of stuff, and jump on Zoom to talk to those guys. And made it, I think, with like maybe an hour or so, like as a gap or whatever, because they had, I think a team meeting that night or something. So he's like, yeah, we got to try and get this thing in as soon as possible or whatever. And, but it was awesome. And it was, ironically, it's hard to believe, that was the first interview I'd had. Those opportunities prior to that were all phone call. Would you be interested? And kind of just rolled from there, and had a phone call with the coordinator, the head coach. And that was kind of it. This was the first kind of interview where I jumped in with it was just a running back coach, Cole, who's, like I said, the chief of staff down there, and, kind of talked to those guys and told them what I think, what I believe, and a little bit of background stuff. And then called me about an hour later and said, "All right, come down here next week." And I was like, "Okay, sweet." So we went down there, and, it was, again, I just can't help but say it. I know I sound like a broken record. It's people like Coach Dilfer. Coach Allen is at the very top. Coach Dilfer's right there with him in terms of just his love and care for his players. And I'll even go another step of that, like his staff. Coach Dilfer takes phenomenal care of his staff, and just that opportunity there. I learned so much football. But I also learned so much life from that guy. Like when he was talking in the team meeting, when Coach Dilfer was talking in team meetings, he was talking to me. And I told him that on multiple occasions, like, I know you're talking to these guys, and I believe you're influencing the players, but even if they weren't, you're influencing me. Like, you're making a tremendous impact on my life. And I'm super grateful for him. Super, super grateful for him. So we were down there, and, started off, my first year was with the running backs, and then got promoted to working with both the running backs and the quarterbacks. And that's kind of when the Bill Walsh thing happened here with the Titans, which is a minority internship, which I was able to get last summer. And then so went through that, came up for mini camp, and then came back for training camp. And when that thing kind of wrapped up, Coach Callahan pulled me in and was like, you've done a really good job here. You've impressed a lot of people. And I'm not big on letting good people and good coaches leave. So I'd like for you to stay if it's something you're interested in. I was like, absolutely. So got a chance to go through this season here with these guys. And again, like phenomenal people. It's just from top to bottom, ownership, front office, this coaching staff, our players. We have great players. We have great people. We have great players. We're going to get better. And I'm super thankful for this place and just the opportunity to leave a small impact on this place, and just the platform that you have to be able to help others along the way. It's a great situation. We got a lot of work to do, but we're 3 months, almost 3 months through this off season. It's a lot of fun, just kind of, because it's what I've told a lot of people is like, it's almost like you're kind of going back in some ways to that first year at Danville, because it's just a new environment. It's a new game. It's a new everything. And so just learning so many new things throughout the course of every single day throughout the course of the season. And then, moving to this off season phase, it's been an absolute blast. So
Awesome. Man, lots to take there, lots to take in, and clearly the message on people. And, what people don't realize, like, when you invest in someone else, whether it's in your kids or your students in school or whoever, not everyone responds back how you want, right? You push them or want for them or coach them and give them cues on life or how to lift better or how to run this route better. And some people take it to heart and they apply it, and some people like, hey, they don't. So some kind of drift away, but some people really move forward, and when you invest in them, it's easier for them to move forward. There's also the other side. In every organization, there's folks that aren't always that awesome, and there's times when there's biases, there's things that are unfair, or they look like they're unfair, or maybe it feels like it's unfair. You haven't asked yourself probably, why is this happening for me? Instead of, you probably ask, why is it happening to me? When you see things like this person was treated poorly, or maybe you've been treated poorly, there's still a job to do. They're still trying to get a W on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. There's still the bottom line in the sales meeting for an organization. What's your advice when people, hey, man, this kind of sucks, or this is a bad outcome, or you just got cut and you worked your ass off? What have you witnessed as people's advice to say, hey, man, you're getting treated like shit, but hey, we're still moving forward? How do you get people to still push? Because it's not always sunshine and rainbows and LEO from everybody.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold in some ways. Like, for me, it's not your responsibility to love your role, but it's your responsibility to be your best within that role. And that's what I've always tried to do, whether, as a player, as a coach. Like, you have a job to do, and the entire organization is counting on you to do that job and to do it to the best of your abilities, regardless of if it's at Danville High School, if it's, Indiana University, doesn't matter. Like, there's other people that are counting on you. It's bigger than just you, and that's what I've kind of realized. Like, when what you're calling to do, what your purpose is as a player, as a coach, when it's deeper than just yourself, those things, like those the things that you don't feel like doing come really, really like slim. Really, like, there's just not a lot of things that you just don't want to do because you're doing it for something bigger than yourself. And so that's what I would say is when it's rooted in something bigger than you, a lot of those things go away. And a lot of those things dissipate because you're thinking about your purpose more so than you're thinking about how you're feeling, for a lack of a better term.
Gotcha. If you're doing what you're asked to do and it's your calling, then the actual activity, in theory, and that should be the reward, not the shiny event, the big prize at the end. It's, hey, this is for me, my calling is to help people become the best they can mentally and physically. Typically that's with student athletes or adults, right? So there's plenty of things that suck, like sweeping the floor, You can say, man, I'm 50 years old. I have an MBA and I've been working with people and I managed millions of dollars on top of all this stuff back in the day, right? Here I am sweeping the floor, right? But it's still part of the deal, right? And the calling is to help these people be better. Well, the entire experience is part of that. And you're right. If you can dial into your calling, then it's pretty easy. You're traveling all over the country because you knew as a sophomore, hey, I want a life in football, and this is the deal. This is the deal, the life in football. You always hear about people like, hey, there's only a handful of people that are that gifted, they're going to be great. But there's still plenty of gifted people, and there's probably more than a handful when you're at certain levels. But then others will always say, hey, you're never going to outwork me. You're never going to out this me. Peyton and Brady are legendary for it. Tiger Woods is legendary for that. I'm sure, like, I don't know what the divorce rate is for coordinators and head coaches, but a lot of times they got, couches in their office and they're sleeping on and stuff, right? So talk about some, like, where you witnessed, hey, this guy was good, but he made it really, really far because he outworked everybody. And what did he actually do? Like, what were some of that person's have? Like, this person just really got more than I could ever imagine out of his tank of gas because he was doing this, this, and this.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but like, and it's going to sound crazy to say, like, I've been super, super fortunate to be around and I've been modeled a really, really efficient process of doing things. At Ball State, we had a great process of being able to because at the end of the day, putting together a game plan each week takes a lot of time. And there's a certain, no matter what you're doing in the game of football, it takes time to put together a game plan. It takes time to recruit players. Like, this profession takes time. But I've been very, very fortunate with the people at all these stops that I've been shown a very efficient way of doing things. And you don't waste movements. I think that if you're wasting movements, number one, you're getting passed up. Number two, you're shortchanging the players because ultimately it's about them. It's about the most important time that you have is with the players. So if you're wasting time in your preparation, you're taking that time away from the players, and then as a byproduct, obviously you're shortchanging your family. And so I think it's all tied together. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, Jim, in terms
Sure.
of, kind of that, but to me, efficiency is what it's all about in terms of, like, we're going to work really, really hard, but we're also going to make sure that we're doing it in the most efficient way possible because there's other people counting on us. Our players are counting on us to be prepared for meetings and have, sharp minds and clarity of mind and focus thoughts and godly thoughts, in my opinion. And so, and then obviously that pours into our families to be able to, give everyone around us the best version of ourselves. I think it stems from efficiency.
You read a Jocko book on leadership. There's a little chapter on prioritizing and executing. You listen to Hawthorne about living in the woods, about just being an essentialist, and so a lot of folks will say it's not that I'm prioritizing; it's that I'm stripping away so much noise. And so what it sounds like, what you're saying, for those that really perform at the highest level, there's only a few things that they need to be working on, and there's 1,000 or a million other things that could pull them in a certain direction, whether it's a coach or a player or a staff member. You could be on your phone if you're just a high school kid scrolling around, or you could be following someone online specifically because they talk a lot about your play. So they talk about maybe the receivers, and this guy's always putting out content about receivers. So maybe you're on your phone, but you're actually using it to your advantage. So I think if I'm hearing you correctly, the the need to prioritize and execute at each level gets more and more critical.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
can
Because
you
you can
get
say there's
by.
more. Yeah, you can say there's more people like when I get to X school, I'll have all these assistants, but then you're just going to find more work to do.
Yeah.
Like the work ain't changing. Like,
No.
whether you either strip things away because you have less people or you add things because you have more people. And so the efficiency stays the efficiency. Like,
Right.
you have to, exactly what you're saying, you have to prioritize, and make the main thing and get things done in the most efficient way possible to produce the best version of yourself for the people around you.
The analogy that we say in the weight room is that it doesn't get easier, you just get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You're lifting more reps, you're doing heavier weight, you're doing more volume, and it's you go from a 300-pound bench to a 500-pound bench, but you're stronger.
Yeah.
But it's not a
Yeah.
hell of a lot not easier. When I always send out our guests these questionnaire and have them to help kind of like prompt discussion. And we're talking about mindset stuff or training or whatever. And a number of different spots, you point out that one of your factors for doing things well is pre-deciding. What does that mean to you, and how do you apply that? Pre-deciding. Explain that.
Yeah, I think the easiest example is nutrition, where like health. What like when you make the decision beforehand, like it this is this is no longer a part of the way I operate. Like it's a non-negotiable for me to step into my office, and I'm not saying this is me. I work every day for this to be me, but it is what my mindset is, and the discipline has to follow. Is it's impossible for me to walk into this office to start my day and not start with my daily devotional before I start work. Like I got to pre-decide that in order to make it a reality in my mind, and it's a decision that I've made prior, that it's impossible for me to just open up this computer. Like I'm going to shut this computer down before I start. So that way it forces me to open up that book that's got all the answers for every interaction I'm going to have today. And so I think that's what it's about. It's about setting parameters for yourself as well. Like I just said, in terms of like my computer's going to be, I'm going to shut everything off. So that way it forces me, I would have to open this computer, turn the power on, log in, like all that sort of stuff before I open, my devotional. And so I think setting a framework and parameters to kind of make those decisions beforehand for yourself, just like
Mm-hmm.
you pick out your clothes before the night before, before your day. I think it's a similar idea to that, is just making those as many decisions as you possibly can to create the framework for you to make those decisions that you ultimately want to make, maybe when you don't even feel like it.
When it when it's a short time crunch, the decisions get different. I
Okay.
come home from the gym from training, and it's time to eat. You know, at that point I'm so hungry. It's whatever's easy and fast. Now, what's my pre-deciding process? Luckily, I have my wife who's really good at nutrition, and she doesn't mind doing this for me. So she'll make breakfast casseroles, and we'll grill up chicken sausages, right? So the food is ready on Sunday for my breakfast Monday through Friday. So when I come home, all right, this is fast. It's there, but it's also within my nutrition numbers I want to hit.
There you go.
Otherwise, I'm just gonna go, this is fast. I'm drinking a shake, and I'm gonna probably throw in a bunch of shit like Pop Tarts or whatever. But if you think about it in advance, I'll listen to Mickey Marotti. He's like, yeah, we tell our guys, if you're going out to this bar, nothing great happens past midnight. So pre-decide, hey, I'm leaving at this time. Pre-decide, this person is driving. So with the harp, this is really challenging because I built this nerdy planner for our athletes, and I have my high school kids using it. Now, what we're asking these kids to do is be mature adults at 14, 15, 16 years old. And what it does, is we're prompting them, just like you said, what are your targets for next week on your nutrition? And for some of these guys, it simply might be, hey, I'm taking my creatine every day. I'm going to track that. And that's a win because they haven't done that yet. Or for their training or I'm sorry, for the knowledge of their sport. All right, film study is at these times. I want to be elite level at film study, so I'm going to program in 30 extra minutes. And
Absolutely.
so the planner tracks that, but we're asking these kids saying, hey, on Friday or Saturday, have this ready to go for your next week, which starts Sunday. And if you plan it out and schedule it, man, like I was not doing that in high school. I was barely doing that in college
Yeah.
until I was running my painting business. I was forced to, but it's like, man, because you take a 50-year-old and you shove it in a 14-year-old's brain. It's like, oh man, if you just do these little things and you plan it out, and because Lucas will be planning out the warm-ups for his student athletes. But for me and Lucas back in the day, we're like, all right, we're going to show up on the bench. We're going 135, 225. We're just going right to it. It's stupid, right? Because this is what you want to do. But if you think about it in advance, slow things down and think, you really got a shot at making some big, big moves.
Absolutely.
Ah, being centered, we are talking about your faith. Um, what is here's the fun aspect of the questions. When you're on the road in college or in the pros, what's a stadium or an environment you're like, man, I'm looking forward to that place? You
Yeah.
know, I want to play. I want to see what it's like there. I want to see how cold it is there. I want to see how nice it is there. Is Miami really that great? You know, am I really in the Death Star out in Las Vegas, or is, as I would think, the Cleveland Browns has got to be the best organization to be with, because I'm from Cleveland, right? So in terms of like experience of the fans and the stadiums and stuff, what are some places you're like, hey, this was awesome, or I'd like to go see this happen at some point?
Yeah. The first year, last year, we saw some really, really cool places, and obviously you don't hit them all, and I think they're all unique in their own way. I think every stadium has its own history or lack of history, and it's kind of unique in that way. Like Chicago was really, really cool because of, the history there, and it was their Hall of Famers day that first week of the season when we played them. And then you go down to Miami and, you see Hard Rock Cafe or Hard Rock Stadium, and just how incredible that building is, how incredible SoFi is. Like these stadiums nowadays are just incredible with just how advanced they are, and just everything that's kind of been built within them. And then, even when we were at Indiana, like, you go to some pretty cool places in the Big Ten. Like not a lot of people understand how cool Nebraska is. Like you go play in Nebraska, it's really, really cool at their Memorial Stadium. And Ohio State, obviously, and Michigan State, a lot of those big time programs. There's just so many that come to mind. And even like when we were at Marion, like, we went up to, or we went down to Grambling for the national championship in 2019 when we played Morningside down there, and that was, you got to think, as a high school student athlete playing small high school football at Marion, you're really not playing any big time stadiums all that much. Like you're playing at Grambling and FCS Stadium, and it's like, wow, this is a big time stadium, and
Right.
so the perception of it, was really, really cool. And obviously just the standard of it being a championship game and, all that sort of stuff. So really it's been fortunate, just the places you're able to see, the people you're able to meet along these different places you're able to go, in this profession, both as players and coaches. There's so many places that are unique for their own reasons.
He gave a real nice answer, saying everyone's kind of, all these places have merit, you know, right? But you're gonna know that
I'll tell you this. I'll
Miami in
tell you this.
September is hot, and
Oh yeah.
the playing in Buffalo, Cleveland, and Green Bay in January is cold, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Arrowhead is loud, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll figure out more of those as we kind of go along. But I will say one of the cooler ones was going back to Indy, and playing up there. We had played there, I think 3 or 4 times in my high school career. And so going back there and kind of being in a different, you don't have a helmet on for one of the first times in that stadium,
Right.
and so that was pretty unique. And seeing all the people there, it was really, 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 really cool experience. Obviously we wish we would have come out with a victory, but and it was the weekend before Christmas, so I actually got to spend Christmas with my family. Kind of that weekend, just kind of testament to how God works.
That's the challenge, right? Detroit, Dallas, they're playing Thanksgiving. There's turkey legs going out. There's games on Christmas. There's games, all throughout. And, Sunday, Lord's Day, right? So there's the sport takes over, right? And you might be doing well, and the whole team gets, or the whole staff gets fired, and things change. It's got to be hard on relationships, right? Especially for a spouse or if you have kids. It's got to be hard. So, like, I know you said you had a girlfriend that you mentioned you guys had talked about that, and what you guys do personally isn't my business or anyone else's. But how do you guys work at keeping those relationships solid? Because as a player or a worker, you have your leadership teammates, you got your teammates on the field or your coworkers, and then there's your support team, family and friends. Like your parents are huge supporting you, your friends support you, but there's your family at home. So if any one of those three components, the leadership team, the teammates on the field, or support team, is not lined up and jiving, the machine breaks down.
Oh yeah.
So talk about the importance there on those interpersonal relationships, keeping the whole machine running.
Absolutely. Yeah. You said it perfectly. Like, I believe you have to, at any high level event, like, I think you have to have a support system. You have to have, I've been very fortunate just with amazing parents, who have went above and beyond throughout my playing career, my education career, and then obviously my coaching career. I don't know how many games they've missed of me coaching, just them being around for me to watch me coach and watch our, and this, the care that they have for our players, our organization, from afar is amazing. And my grandparents, I'll add them to it as well. Like, they watch every single one of our games, and their unconditional love for me doesn't change regardless of the win or the loss. And so just having those people whenever, I pick up the phone and call them, or I'm able to come home and see them. It's just, I can't describe how much those people mean to me, and then obviously my girlfriend on top of it, just, we've both made decisions career wise, to kind of put those things first. I shouldn't say that to put those first, but to prioritize those things, and as far as our advancements in our career, because she's going to be going to law school this fall, and just all the things that she has going as well. Like, I think it's just important to support one another along it, whatever that looks like, whether that's supporting from a distance or supporting, through constant communication, whatever is needed for those relationships. Like, I know my parents, they value the time I'm able to spend with them, whether it's on the phone or in person. Like, whatever those people value, trying to meet those needs as best you possibly can, and then being aware of the responsibilities that you have within that. And it ultimately comes down to, again, pre-deciding those things and making those things priority, non-negotiables in your life, and making those things priorities, but then also communicating clearly on what the expectation is kind of within those things as well, what you need from them and what they need from you. And, those are kind of the big points. I know it's a little bit all over the place there, but, I think those things are the most important things in terms of just those relationships, because it's not just a one street. It's not a one way relationship. Like, they're not just there to serve you. In my opinion, like I'm there to serve them. It's a relationship, it's a relationship with my parents, a relationship with my grandparents. Like, you guys, I have to pour into you guys just as much as you guys pour into me. And so I think that's important for high achievers to understand as well, is that two-way, because so many times you can look up and they're just serving you, and you're not reciprocating those things back to them.
I think where people, I like that quite a bit, about the giving back. I think what people don't recognize, or some parts where they could get challenged, is that being in balance is different at different times of the year. So at some point it might be 50-50. At another time it might be 80-20, and you're getting 80 and you're only giving 20, and you're out of balance there. But if you recognize that, and you guys talk about and pre-decide, hey, this is how this has to be in this moment for this short duration. And for some people it's a career. NFL career is 3 or 4 years, right? So it might be out of balance that way. The pendulum swings that way. Well, when you're in the off season, or when you're out of that role, it needs to swing back to help compensate and say, hey, you really poured into me and sacrificed some things here. I want to do the same for you. And if you kind of have that pendulum going back and forth, because it's never really static at 50-50, but you point that out, and then, if I tell my wife, hey, I'm making a big push here, I want to grow this thing, and I got the next 2 years, she's gonna be like, all right, well, in 2 years, it's not 25 months, it's 24 months, and there better be a payoff, because we're all making this decision together, right? So I think if you let the pendulum swing back and forth like that, then it's a bit healthier, and you got a shot at sustainability at that point. Otherwise, it gets into that habit of, well, I'm just always receiving, which, cool, fun, right? Easier, but it's not sustainable. It's not really that rewarding.
Absolutely. And I think you said, like, in my opinion, especially in the world I live in, and us as football coaches, players, like the terms of the year, I think that's so huge. Is in some ways it's 6 months on, 6 months off, which is, it's not never exact, like you were saying, but, that's how I try and look at it, is, really once the season ends to, the end of summer vacation, is how much can I give to those people? Like, how much can I pour back into all those people who made sacrifices to come to the games, but all that sort of stuff. Like,
Sure.
When you said that's what it is,
Yeah.
and so much of what our world is tied to is the phases of the year.
Gotcha. I know back in the day, a heavy deadlift from blocks with Dustin, big pulls, right? He always had Creed blasting, in the background, to the point where you get a little tired of it, but still love Creed when you're lifting. What do you listen to when you're training?
Oh, you're not gonna believe this. Podcasts.
Okay, well, I know one.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. But yeah, no, my like that's what I listen to basically. If I'm in the office, if I'm working out, if I'm driving, very rarely will I listen to music. But
Okay.
um, the three kind of buckets that I kind of consume are football, coaching, leadership, like that kind of just bucket of podcasts. Um, Spiritual development, which is like I've got the podcast of this, like the church I went to in Bloomington, the church from Birmingham, the church, just all those different places. 'Cause then you look up and you're like, man, I got 5 sermons to listen to on Sunday throughout the course of the week. So that part's been pretty cool. And then uh, financial advice or financial literacy, financial personal finance. Those are kind of the three buckets that I try and consume to better myself. Whether it's in the weight room or if it's just sitting here working on whatever it is here in the office.
Awesome. Let's say you and your girlfriend have time off at the same time, and you go someplace you guys haven't been before. Where's that going to be?
Hmm. Um, Somewhere in the Caribbean.
Okay.
Somewhere in the Caribbean, I would like just from hearing how awesome, like Aruba, Bora Bora, places like that, Turks and Caicos, like just places like that in the Caribbean. Um, that was the first that came to mind.
Awesome. Favorite sports movie?
Draft day.
Go Browns.
There you go.
Their best shot at the Super Bowl, doing well in the movie. Favorite sport to watch?
Football. But if it wasn't that, I would say golf.
And favorite athlete? Young or old, alive or dead, any sport?
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Uh, your favorite book?
Um,
The Good Book.
Lead for God's sake. That's the first one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm writing this down. Fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter. Favorite superhero?
Oh, Superman. It's the first one that comes to mind.
Well,
I'm not a big like Marvel
yeah, it could be
like
any.
that type of deal. I just yeah. So first one comes to mind.
And again, villain or fiction or nonfiction could be real, could be any story. Favorite villain?
Uh, can I say like a sports player who was
Yeah.
technically the bad boy Pistons.
Oh
Those
my
guys were yeah.
goodness. Are you even old enough to watch them?
Oh yeah.
No. That was
30 for
that was
30.
when I was a kid.
30 for 30.
They're all okay, got it. Yeah. I was alive back when they were playing. Yeah. The Pistons. Favorite lift in the gym to do?
Squat.
That's mine. Because it always made me, I was always terrified of it. And I was always wanting to push that up. I'm like, if you put that bar on your back, there's a level of fear when you're
Yeah.
going for a new max. And that's why I
Okay.
appreciate it. You got a favorite quote?
Give you a Bible verse.
Great.
Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight.
Love it. Other than on the field for the Tennessee games, where if people want to reach out to you, where can I find you?
On Twitter, probably the easiest way. It's just coach_Browder, I think. Are you talking about so like to reach out on social media? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah. That's why. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Gotcha. All right, cool. Um, man, Trevor, great having you on the show. Want to thank you for being on. Also want to thank our guys over at Jocko Fuel. I'm constantly addicted to them. If you guys want to have questions for Trevor or for us or any other prior guests, info@athlete-builder.com. The planner we were talking about, that's what it looks like. Goes along with the book. Um, Athlete Builder Summit also set up June 7th. Uh, Last year's was really good, and this year's already better with who we got coming. So be on the lookout for that. June 7th. We got a number of speakers on how to build people mentally and physically. So Trevor, man, awesome time. Good catching up. I'm glad I saw you at Timmy's shower. Another one of the boys from back in the day at the gym who's getting married, and it's great to catch up there. It was I was God put you in front of me. And I'm like, hey man, let's get on the show. Let's talk about your journey because who goes from Cardinal Ritter and then through my gym and now he's coaching the NFL, which my wife prompted me and said, how come we don't have a Tennessee Titans flag for him and a Colts flag for Zane Fakes hanging out in our gym because that's where they work now. And I'm like, ordered. Let's go. Hang it up. So we'll have a
Absolutely.
picture with Trevor and the flag. Of course, she also pointed out how cute you were. So uh, awesome time, Trevor. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, no, it was great to see you back at Timmy's open house and just getting the chance to catch up and obviously being on here. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
For sure. Best of luck with the season.
Yes, sir. Thanks.